So you said you joined Seamless straight after university. What made you decide to not pursue? I assume, did you do a PhD or not?
No.
Okay, so what made you decide that actually that wasn't for you and you just wanted to go straight into industry? Was there
Yeah, that's definitely like so I actually just did my bachelor's, and so I got like I got first an Astro last year, and then to be honest, I felt like staying in like doing part 3 and then doing a PhD was really like what inertia suggested. And so it felt sort of like the easy way out. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. But all I knew was like, you probably shouldn't do what inertia is telling you to do, because it's always a bad idea to just go for the easy option. So I said, okay, forget about doing a PhD, that's not a good idea. So I sort of left university I hadn't really applied to jobs or anything, because I just wanted to focus on my exams.
Yeah.
And so I just left and I said, well, I'm just going to teach myself some coding and see where that takes me. And then a friend of mine who studied maths at Cambridge and worked at Seamless sent me a text and said, Thomas, I'm working at this pretty cool company, you should really talk to Will. And so I did, and that's kind of what happened. So it was complete luck.
And does your STEM background help with your job? Is it
100%? Like,
I guess, do you work with lots of people with backgrounds in STEM, or is it a varied?
like the least technical person has a degree in economics from Cambridge, and he's like the big outlier. And he is a former pro poker player, so he knows his stuff with maths and probability, etc. So
I guess very STEM heavy field.
100%. Like everyone, I mean, Val, who's like one of our modelers, he did like he did part 3 maths, and then he did a PhD in theoretical physics. He was doing a postdoc at the Institute for Advanced Study before coming to Seamless, and he's just a cosmology genius. Like literally, his reference when he joined Seamless was his postdoc supervisor, and the supervisor told us Val is the best cosmologist of this generation. We're like, cool. and everyone is kind of like this now. But there are some weirder ones, like George is one of the best Sudoku players in the world, so it's very technical, but he did like mathematics and management. And it's all just math graduates.
So a lot of maths and, I guess, physics by extension.
To be honest, I think there are only 2 physicists.
Okay.
Like, it's mainly math mods, but it is quite fun. And I think the real like thing which is useful from a STEM degree is just like Richard Feynman has this principle, which is like the first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you're the easiest person to fool. And you really learn that when you're doing physics. And that applies so much to algorithmic trading. It's just, if you fool yourself, you're immediately going to start losing lots of money.
Yeah.
So
I guess, do you have any particular skills you have from your physics background that you're using, or any like new skills that you've learnt along the way that are now helping you with your job? What sort of skills are you using on a regular basis in your job?
To be honest, like skills I learned from physics, not that many. Like, it's not that helpful to be able to solve a part 2 mechanics question in 25 minutes when you're doing trading. Like, it's not that helpful. What I think there are like only 2 courses I took at Cambridge which are like probably a bit helpful. One of them is actually a course I really disliked, but experimental physics.
Oh god, I hated it.
I hated it. Like, I thought it was really not fun, but actually it's like just very simple, robust statistics and way to like understand if what you're seeing is statistically significant or not.
Yeah.
That's like, I was much more into theoretical stuff, but it turns out that like those things are really helpful. Like, so the lecture really did have a point. And then there's this really cool course in the astrophysics tripos, which is called Physics of Astrophysics.
Okay.
Which is just it's basically a course in estimations. It's like, it's just these, all the problems are like completely different, and then as long as your reasoning is solid and you get to 1 order of magnitude, you get 4 marks, so it's good.
Okay.
And those 2 courses are probably the only 2 very useful ones. Like, it's very good to be able to quickly estimate if something is worth your time, or if it's going to take you a week of work and not give anything. So just being quick with estimations is probably the only like solid scale from physics which transfers, And then skills I use on a daily basis, like I had to learn how to become a good coder. When I left physics, I was not a good coder. I don't know if many physicists are.
I don't think it's a skill they particularly test us for.
It's true. MATLAB coding.
So when you said you didn't really have a plan after uni, was there a point where you decided you'd want to work for a startup as opposed to a big corporate? Or was that just how it worked out for you?
That was very deliberate. Like, I think it's really important to it's hard to know what you want in life, but it's easy to know what you value and what you don't, and what you really dislike. And I have like a hard time comprehending why anyone would want to work at a big bank or a big consultancy firms. Like, I really value independence and autonomy. If I went to work at McKinsey or Boston Consulting Group, like, I'll just be a little cog in a huge machine. And
would you say that working for a startup is a more close-knit community? Would you?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like being treated like an adult, basically. Like, I mean, from day one at Seamless, like, I was given things which were way too hard for me to do, and I was let fail and learned a lot. But mainly, like, I was given sort of autonomy and freedom, and so I just feel like I don't understand why anyone would ever want to work at a big company. Like, it's kind of beyond me. Because you just end up being someone else's handmaid or like, it's crazy. Like, it's just like, it's really important to understand what you want to be like, and it just shows complete lack of creativity to say like, I'm going to go to Goldman Sachs. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Would you say the working environment in your, community sort of add to how like the company's doing? Is it like, would you say it's successful because of?
Oh, big time. Like, we have quite an unusual culture, which is we're very big on brutal honesty. So we really think like being very, very honest and tough with ourselves is the same thing as being kind. It's like, if I like didn't care at all about you and I saw that you're making this big mistake which is going to make you much less successful in life than you could be, I wouldn't bother telling you because it's kind of uncomfortable and they're like it, I'm not gonna like it. But if you really care about the other person and you really want them to grow, well then you just gotta go tell them like, man, you're an idiot. Like, you're so bad at details, we cannot give you tasks which involve attention to details. And so one really nice thing about Seamless is that you get the most brutal feedback, but not in a mean way or anything, but just very honest. Like, if you do something terribly, you're going to be told precisely why what you did is terrible. And at first it feels, you feel like shit basically, but then you realize, man, that's great. Like, it would have taken me 2 years to realize that I'm much too optimistic a person, that always leads me to underestimate how hard things are going to be or how long things are going to take or whatever.
Would you say that culture just improved you as a...
100%. Like, I mean, one of the things I really wanted to get better at, and this is still true, is like, anyone who's, I was like 21 when I left university. I don't really understand what the world is about. Like, I don't have a strong internal compass or anything. And so I was really focused on, what are like some good principles for life? What are things which are valuable? What are things which I care about? And just what is right and what is wrong, sort of. And Seamless is very big on morality and like strong principles for getting good outcomes. And so, I look back to what I was 12 months ago and I'm like, man, this guy's an idiot. And that's kind of a big treat for me. If every year I could look back to myself a year ago and say, that guy's an idiot, I'll say that's a cool outcome.
How would you describe the ideal sort of person working at Seamless? What sort of person would Seamless be looking for?
I mean, it's very important to be very open-minded and just be like, basically very high open-mindedness and very high abilities. The skills is whatever, like anyone can learn how to code, anyone can learn elementary statistics or whatever. But you can't learn to have high IQ, you can't learn to be like open-minded and have good character. And so what matters the most is just do you have a good character? Are you open-minded? Are you humble? Are you willing to grow? And sort of look at yourself in the mirror. And basically, do you have the green physics from Cambridge, which is a good proxy for IQ. And then if you have these two things, you can really do anything. So that's kind of the sort of person.
So where do you see yourself in the future with Seamless? Where are you looking to progress, I guess?
Me personally or the company?
Both.
Well, I mean, it's kind of impossible to predict far into the future, but currently what I can say is like, today we're twice as big as we were last year. Currently we're hiring very, very aggressively. Like, in 6 weeks we should have hired another 5 people or something. That's the plan. So at the end of the year we should be twice as large as we are today. And so, if you extrapolate that out, it's like, if you double it every year, which is a brutal rate to keep up, but like, say we keep that up, we'll just be, 60 people or something in 2 years, and then we'll see.
Do you have any advice for students looking to apply for Seamless?
Just be completely honest. Like, hiring is this weird thing. Like, it turns out that applying for jobs sucks, but actually hiring people is also really hard. And it's really important for everyone involved to just be completely honest. So when we interview candidates, I actually do my best to dissuade them from joining Seamless. I try to tell them all the stuff they might really hate. I tell them, but in the most honest, transparent way possible. It's like, it's really just a matching problem. So if you come and you try to show like some sort of weird, polished version of yourself, which is not you, we might think, oh, well, this is what this person is like, but actually they're a bit different. And that might mean that they hate Seamless. And so the point is never really to like get the job when you're interviewing. It's really to understand, like, are you the right person? Like, or is this the right job for you even? And so
I guess when you were applying for jobs, did you apply for a bunch of companies? Did you pick an industry, or how did you decide that Seamless was a place for you?
To be honest, like, so Seamless is very big on following this book called Ray Dalio's Principles. Have you heard of it?
I have not.
So Ray Dalio is the founder of Bridgewater, which is the biggest hedge fund in the world. And Ray Dalio he's kind of this controversial guy that they have this very, very distinct culture of being brutally honest with one another and many other things. And he wrote basically down in bullet points how to build a successful hedge fund and what's the right culture. And I'd actually read this document in 2012 or something, like a very long time ago.
Yeah.
And when a friend of mine got in touch with me and said, you might be interested in working at Seamless, by the way, they really follow like Ray Dalio's principles. I was like, if these guys are serious and they are very honest, very transparent, and they actually they have like just an honest idea of meritocracy, then I can join there. And then I talked to the people and I was like, wow, these guys are serious. Like, they are, not only are they super smart and much smarter than me, but also they're super honest and like they're genuinely good people. So I didn't really care about the industry. Like, if Seamless was selling lemonade, I'd still work at Seamless, honestly. It's just, I think when you decide when to work, like, you're gonna spend so much time with the people you work with. And you gotta remember, like, there's this rule of thumb, which is, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yeah.
So, if you go to Goldman Sachs, like, you're gonna be the average of those 5 people. Like, if you go to, so I just met the people and I was like, wow, these people are very, very intelligent. Like, they've achieved these amazing things. They're very honest. They're very open-minded. They're quite humble. These are my people. Like, and so, didn't pick an industry. I only applied to this job.
Yeah. I guess it worked out.
Yeah, it's terrible advice from getting a job. Like, I realized I got quite lucky. But it ended up being a perfect fit. Like, I cannot imagine, like, of all my friends, I don't know anyone who got a job they enjoy more than I do.
I guess that's good. So how would you describe your typical day at work?
It's quite different, but like, typical day.
or a variety of typical days?
Like, I guess I'll just take like recurring elements, but they wouldn't happen in one single day probably. So one thing which happens a lot is, well, I've been working on this problem for like a day or something, and then I'll be like, oh, I think I have a good answer, and I'll go get some feedback, and then I'll sit down with someone, and we try to make sure that like the person I sit down with, I'll try to take someone who's very complimentary to me. So I'll take someone who has very strong attention to details, because that's one of my weaknesses, for example. And then we'll sit down, and he'll just point out like, he'll try to find all the flaws and just tell me like, oh, you missed all these things, but that's because you're blind to details. So that's like a very common thing. Is so like working at Seamless is almost like continuously taking psychometric assessments, because everyone is always pointing out like, this is what you're weak at actually. And so that's one thing. And then it depends. Like some days I'll just spend my whole day with like tweaking little parameters to see if I can make one score better, and I'll just like run a simulation with one set of parameters and be like, that's not bad. Write those parameters down, try another thing, and just look for like nice solid optima. It's just very, very varied. Like one nice thing about working at Seamless is like when we hire the person, we're not hiring them for like one specific job. Like we're hiring them because we think they have huge potential, and we think they could do really great work. Now, if we hire them and initially we're like, oh, we want you to be a software developer, but then it turns out that person is going to be a much better trader, well then we're quickly going to realize that and sort of pivot them into being more of a trader type. Yeah. Or if it turns out that they're much better at something different, we'll make sure that they're responsible for that thing, because you're only going to be happy if you're in a role where you could potentially excel. Like no one's happy put in the box and be like, oh, if I put all the effort in the world, not only will I dislike this work, but also I'll just be an 8 out of 10 or something. So we really focus on like making sure that when we hire someone, we try to like tailor the role for them so that they can really fulfill their potential and produce more for us. So it's really a win-win. So I kind of forget where I was going with this.
I mean, I guess a lot of the worry of like doing an office job is that it's monotonous, but that doesn't sound like the Seamless experience.
Like, I far from monotonous. Like, thing is, what I really like about Seamless also is it's quite contrarian. Like, a lot of the people are kind of rogues. Like, William, who's the company founder, I mean, he was making £100,000 playing poker at the age of 16. And, he left after a bachelor's from Cambridge in economics because he thought, academia is just not worth my time. It's going to be to me, academia seems much more monotonous. What's nice, I guess, about Seamless is like, I think it's really important to make sure you have non-linearities in your growth. So like, if you go to a big company, they have like a grad scheme and training for 18 months. Yeah. You could be 10 times better than the rest of the people. It's still going to take 18 months to get out of that grad scheme. Yeah. Academia is kind of the same thing. Like, it's still going to take you 3 years. You have to jump through hoops. Whereas working at Seamless is like, if from day 2 you're 10 times better than someone else at what they're doing, like, you are now the more believable expert than them. And so, yeah, and to me, that's the real selling point of working at small companies. Like, you just want to maximize your personal growth. At the age of 22, I don't care what I'm working on. I just care that I'm getting a lot better very, very fast. Yeah. And so for me, that's really the selling point of Seamless.
Yeah, I guess on the other end of the spectrum, is there anything kind of frustrating or that you dislike about working at Seamless?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's extremely hard. Like, it's just so hard. I mean, we were interviewing this guy the other day, and there were like 3 of us from Seamless and him. And at some point, Will points out to the guy we're interviewing, David, like, David, you realize you're the only person in this room who doesn't have like pockets under his eyes. Like, it's just, I mean, yeah, it's just brutal. Like, we always try to set goals which are like just outside of what we can do. Yeah. And so, we always really, really push ourselves, and then it's just massively disappointing if you don't reach it.
I guess, does that affect your work-life balance in any way, or?
No, like, one of the big things I learned, like, at Cambridge is that there's just no point working when you're not feeling really on it. So, like, in my first year at Cambridge, you would never find me outside the library. Like, I would just work day in, day out, 13 hours a day, like, just never leave the library. I did not very well in my first year. In my third year, I had a policy of never working if I didn't feel like if I sit down right now, I'm going to get lots of work done.
Yeah.
And that worked way better for me. Not only did I have a nicer time, but I also did much better.
Knowing when to stop and when to...
Yeah, exactly. Like, you only do good work when your like brain is fresh. I mean, when you're doing grunt work, like, you can chop wood for 6 hours and whatever. You can do it for an extra 2. You can't be thinking at max capacity for like 12 hours a day. It's like, I think Paul Dirac, this rule of like only working, he only worked like 4 hours a day at the end of his career, whereas at the start he worked like 12, 15. So we're very big on just knowing when to stop. Because if you do bad work, you actually have to come back and undo it later. So,
Is there any sort of myths about the industry that you can debunk?
Forget about reading academic papers. They're so bad. That's the main thing, like, and this kind of surprised me, I guess, but I really thought, like, these academics, like, they're so clever at publishing those papers, blah, blah, and then it's just never, like, they're right,
and I guess being a good academic and being good at writing a paper are different things as well.
Yeah, I know, but just, we have like lots of people with PhDs, etc., but like they have to unlearn their academic bent and focus on being very pragmatic. So like, it's much more important to like build a good simulator and try a million ideas than it is to like ponder and be like, theoretically, if you make this assumption, then you can do this derivation, blah blah.
So the hands-on approach is
better. It's just that, like, it's the only thing that works. Like, you just have to be extremely pragmatic, and it turns out PhDs in pure math are not the most pragmatic people. So,
I mean, I guess with COVID-19, has that affected how companies working or running?
Not really. No. I mean, we're like really. I mean, some people have started working from home. We all worked from home for a while, but like, no, like nothing particular, like it's just you can code from your living room the same way you can code from an office. And to be honest, I stopped, like, I really hated lockdown and all that stuff, so I actually just went back to the office months ago and I just weren't there because it's much nicer able to work from somewhere which is not your room.
I guess if we just move on a little bit to AI, is there any application of AI that you're particularly interested in or excited about?
I'm going to give a controversial answer. It's like, I think technology is a universally bad thing. Like, every time you develop a new technology, initially it's a great idea and it makes some people's life nicer. And invariably, 20, 100 years down the road, it's always a bad thing. So like, cars. We think cars are like this great idea, right? Initially, no one had cars, and a few people who did have cars, well, they could just get from point A to point B much faster. Cars are a good thing. Fast forward 50 years, and cities are entirely designed so that cars can get around. You have a much worse experience walking around. Lots of noise, lots of pollution, and everything is much more spaced out. So if you don't have a car, you're screwed. So cars are a terrible idea. And like this, I really think this applies to like basically every bit of technology. So AI, I mean, it's cool to see like lots of applications in health, etc. I'm not long AI. Like, it's just going to make our life nicer in the short term and worse in the long run. And I'm not saying this because it's AI. Like, it really applies to every single technology. Like, even all this healthcare stuff, like, okay, cool, maybe we can extend our lifespan by 4 years.
Yeah.
Those are not like quality 4 years. And then here's a more controversial one, like the like breathers for asthma.
Yes.
Right, so these are really good thing, right? Because then people with asthma can have a nicer time. But then you don't select against asthma anymore. and fast forward 100 years and 100 times more people have asthma, and so you reduce the quality of life of all these people.
Yes, that's also through pollution.
But we could do this for every bit of technology,
So yes, if you sit down and nitpick every single bit of technology, you will find a downside to it.
Not nitpick and find a downside. You'll find it's just not a good thing. I mean, people evolved to be hunter-gatherers. We didn't evolve to have iPhone and stuff like that. So cool. I mean, I find it really fun, having computers which can play games against you at a very high level.
Yeah.
That's kind of a cool application. And I watched this really nice documentary about AlphaGo the other day.
Yeah.
Where, AlphaZero has a very funky style of playing chess, and that's quite nice to watch because they're just very unpredictable. But I'm not particularly on any sort of technology.
Actually, on the AlphaGo front, one of my family friends is a professional Go player, and he was saying that it's actually revolutionized the way that they play Go. Because they're learning from the pros are learning from the computer now, which is quite interesting.
But actually, that was true in chess too. Also, after the Deep Blue thing, the chess players they just started to train with the computers. But the thing is, the computers had a much more sort of mechanical style of play until a few years ago, and AlphaZero is completely different to Stockfish and the other chess engines. And so for 10 years, the chess pros, they trained with the computers and they started playing like computers, which makes you win games, but they're not very fun games.
Yeah.
But actually, AlphaZero has a very different, much more fun, much more aggressive style of playing. And I think that's very cool.
Yeah, same with the Go. What he was saying is that what they found is that a lot of the ways of playing that they had ruled out beforehand as bad, actually the computer was doing and winning by playing that way. So they've had to rethink a bunch of techniques, approaches.
That is quite fun.
Which is, I think, really interesting. So I guess I'll ask some of the audience questions that we have. So back on the morals, which you said you absolutely would not work for a big corporation. Is there anything you're morally opposed to working for? For example, banks or...
Well, it's not that I'm morally opposed to banking. It's just I value autonomy. I value I'm morally opposed to working at a bank. No,
is there anywhere you'd morally be opposed to working?
Well, I wouldn't work in a company which sells weapons.
Yeah.
For example, there are all these Cambridge grads who do these internships at BAE Systems. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Look yourself in the mirror. These places, they make mistakes. Or to go back on the technology thing, working at Facebook, all the Komskis think it's so cool. I think that's a really bad thing. You're just working to kill people's attention spans, make them addicted to their phones, and increase teenage girl suicide rates. I wouldn't.
So you wouldn't say the money justifies the means.
The money. Forget about money. You should never work somewhere just because that's where you're going to make the most money. That's guaranteed to not make you happy. That sounds quite obvious to me.
So actually, I think you touched on this a little bit earlier, but so someone's asking that the only position that they see open for graduates is a data scientist on your website, and would they have to be particularly specialized in machine learning and ML?
Oh no, not at all. Posting job ads is such a weird thing because it's like we were saying earlier, hiring is really a matching problem, and currently the way applications work is really weird, right? The applicant has to write a CV, which is this very weird document, don't know, should I put that, I have chess as one of my hobbies? Should I put that, I got X% in this way? Should I put this experience or not? So it's very weird. It's kind of the same thing when you write a job application. And so, actually, we also post job ads on LinkedIn, and there you'll find a graduate trader role. Now, really, if someone's interested, they should just apply to literally any job, and we'll consider them very, very seriously.
Okay.
Now,
so even if the job description is data scientist, would they potentially not end up being a data scientist?
Well, we would just discuss with them and see what is honestly the best thing for them. We've had people apply to be data scientists, and as we got to know them, we were like, man, you can be like an 8 out of 10 data scientist, but a 10 out of 10 trader.
Yeah.
Think about like, and we'll have just an honest discussion, and then they'll be like, yeah, you're right. Like, I just want to fulfill my potential. I should just do more tradery stuff.
Surely that's probably an advantage for working for like a smaller company where that's possible.
100%, yeah. But it's also just, we want the people who work with us to be happy. Like, we don't want them to work themselves to death and be miserable. So you can only be happy in a job where you can be very, very good.
Yeah.
So we're just going to make an effort to make sure that we put you in a job where you can excel. It's not going to make your life easy. It's going to make your life hard, but you'll feel much better. And I think that's quite important. Like, when you work with people, you have to make sure that they're enjoying what they're doing. Because that's the point otherwise.
Does it take you a long time to realize where people's skills would best be used, or?
Oh, right. Like, actually, that's what I also meant to say is like, skills are relevant. Like, if you have a degree from Cambridge in physics or maths, like, you can learn skills. Like, coding is not that hard. Doing some machine learning is not that hard, honestly. So, skills don't really matter. Like, if you have high abilities and, good character and the willingness to look yourself in the mirror, you can achieve anything, and we don't really care about
not necessarily academic skills, but maybe someone's a better
No, but like,
communicator.
it's not academic skills, but like, they're a good proxy for
Yeah.
intelligence, basically. Like the fact that I could solve, physics questions very fast doesn't say much, but it is a good proxy for intelligence, much like, working memory is like a good proxy for IQ.
Yeah.
It's that sort of thing. So, skills are relevant if you have great abilities and great character, I think.
But I guess my question is more, how would you determine if someone's a better trader or like a better data scientist or?
Oh, well, that's so someone who's going to be a good trader has got to be just very, very focused on goals. Like, if you're going to be a good trader, you have to think that it's cool to make lots of money. Now, not necessarily, like, you just got to think it's really cool and really want to optimize that score, basically. Like, you got to be the kind of guy who's just going to sit down in front of the simulator and be like, I'm going to try every single combination of parameters I can think of which makes sense until I make this thing make twice as much money.
Yeah.
And like, so it's kind of this sort of obsessive personality and just be focused on like, oh, I want to have a higher score, I want to make more score. Just being very, very focused on goals and very pragmatic, and not be focused on like, this is a slightly interesting like mathematical property of this thing I discovered. Like, that's not going to make a very good trader. And then the data scientists, well, they're usually like much more interested in details. Like, really, like the thing with machine learning is like you have this small, well-defined problem, and then you can turn all these little knobs and apply these various transformations to your data, or like try a slightly different model, or like take the average of the predictions of these various models, blah blah blah. It's much more like detailsy and so I think like what I've seen is that the very, very creative types, they usually end up wanting to be in the trading office because like they just want to try all these million different things.
Yeah.
And whereas the more like detailsy, very careful types, they prefer working in our data science office. And to be honest, like, it's, we just try to make a good effort to understand what people are like, and we just ask people, we're like, what do you think you're best at? Like, what do you think you would prefer? And then we just have an honest discussion from there.
Yeah. So I guess, since you work at a startup, would you say there's less office politics than you would?
There's no office politics because we have a policy of being completely honest with one another. So like the other day, William, who's the company director, we were basically working together on this project.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh yeah, I think my part is going very, very well, and your part is not going that well. And I just disagreed with that, and I was like, Will, don't be an idiot. Like, this is how it is. And I sort of explained to him my position, and then we discussed it, and we agreed. So like there can't be office politics if you can't like lie to one another and you're just very honest.
Yeah.
I think office politics and whatever, like they just arise if you like hide your observations about people, which like lets resentment grow. If you're just completely honest with one another, and honest that like you're not trying to be mean, you're just trying to get on the same page.
So yeah, would you say there's like less sort of competitiveness and hostility about the office than you would find this?
I mean, there is no hostility. There is huge competitiveness. That's just because we're very competitive, but not like one against another. Just like we just want to be the best. Basically, that's quite normal.
Yeah. No, it isn't like hostile.
Yeah, nice.
What you're trying to.
But I'm sure like. If I was working at McKinsey, I would have been fired by now. I'm not for sure. I'm just because in this space you can't be completely honest. You can't tell to your boss, man, you're an idiot. Like, consider this. So none of that.
Do you have a day in particular at Seamless that stands out to you?
Day that stands out. I mean, there are some days where I look back and I'm like, man, I've just done this ridiculously hard thing. Like, I've been working so hard for the past 12 months. I'm like, wow. I went from like this like terrible coder to a very decent coder. I learned all this stuff, and so a specific day, like, there are some days which are nice when I just look back at how much I learned and how much I've grown and how good I feel about that.
Yeah.
Then a very, very specific day. It's always really nice when you hire someone because especially someone who you think is better than you.
Yeah.
Because it really validates what you're doing. So when you have someone who's like very successful, very intelligent, very good character, and they decide after a long time talking to you that they're going to work with you, that feels so nice. And so we hired the last 2 times we hired someone, so like last week and then 2 weeks before that.
Yeah.
I just feel so good because I'm like, this guy's amazing. And he, after thinking of it carefully, decided I want to work with Seamless. And that feels really awesome.
And how would you say algorithmic trading is making the world better? Or is it?
It's not, of course not. But it's not making the world worse either. So Seamless actually doesn't trade clients' money. We just trade on retained profits.
Yeah.
So, it's not like it's only making the world a better place in the sense that from working at Seamless, I've become a much better person, and I know that's true of all the people I work with as well. Like Jack, who joined Seamless 3 months ago, he's now a much better coder. He's a much more pragmatic person. He lost 15 kilos because we've converted him to running, and he's read the letters of Seneca, and he's now a much better person. So does algorithmic trading make the world a better place? I'm not going to give you the usual bullshit about adding liquidity to the market or whatever. But honestly, I don't think when you're a graduate, your first job out of university, you shouldn't focus on making the world a much better place. You first have to sort of set your house in order, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So just when you get a job, just make sure that it's going to be good for you. It's going to make you a better person. It's going to make you grow. And then, once you're a much more competent person, then you can think about making the world a better place. But honestly, I don't think it makes the world a worse place either. If we had clients, conceivably, I could say it does, because if we lost other people's money, that would really suck. But if we lose, we just lose the company's money, and we're idiots, but at least we learned a lot of things in the process. So
what would you say your strengths and weaknesses are?
That's an easy one, because I think about this every single day. So one of my main weakness is I'm just so optimistic and so bad with details. So I'll just go super fast on something and be like, this is a great idea. And then, whatever, you miss the minus sign, got a factor of 2 wrong, but you get the order of magnitude right. But I'll always be like, it's a great idea. Or I always think I'm always so optimistic that things are going to be easy. So I'm like, I can do that in 2 hours, no problem, or then it takes 3 days. So I'm very, very optimistic, which is, it kind of is fooling yourself, is the final principle, I guess. I'm quite bad with details, I understand big picture things really fast, but the little details, I just always miss them. It's I'm blind to these things.
Yeah.
And then I'm quite bad at planning. So that gets in my way. And then my strengths, I guess my main strength is I'm just ridiculously determined. I'm definitely not the smartest person around. I'm relatively smart, but I'm just so focused on reaching my goals that like I'll just do whatever it takes. Like if I need to work 10 times harder than everyone else to do better, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Like, and that's worked out quite well for me. That's
yeah. Do you have a role model that?
That's actually a tough one. Like I was thinking about this the other day. Like if I wanted to grow more into someone, who would that someone be? And if you think about that for a while, like I found that the right answer is like you just have to try to be yourself really, but really in a not corny way. Like it's like, you know, when you join a big company, why did you do that? Like, is that really what you're like? Like you have to sort of, you know, listen and watch yourself and see, well, what is it that I enjoy? I really enjoy climbing trees. Like, no one does that when they're 22, but like, you know, I try to listen and so like a role model, like a scientific hero, it's gotta be Richard Feynman. Like, I love like because he's just
favorite scientist.
100% like because he's just unashamedly himself. Like he's just this big trickster, you know. He'll go like pick your safe, juggle in the yard, and do all these crazy things. Intellectual like scientist hero, Richard Feynman every day, but who do I really want to go into? Like, I'm 22, like I still have to figure out what I'm like.
Yeah.
So, you know, I just really want to make sure that I fulfill my potential and I grow into myself. I don't want to be someone else.
And would you say working at Similis is that to you too?
100%. Because we're just we're so focused on understanding, like, what am I like, what do I value? And it's completely acceptable to say, like, well, like, you know, if tomorrow, like, if Monday I came into the office and, you know, someone from the company was like, oh man, we have this great idea, we're going to be able to, like, hide our profits in Guernsey or whatever, I'll just tell them to get lost and we wouldn't do it because it's like it's really helped me sort of get my like morals straight in a sense. Like I've spent a lot of time studying Stoic philosophy since I joined Sirius. And
do you have a favorite philosopher?
Seneca. Like Seneca, because he's like the pragmatic philosopher. Like, all the philosophers will tell you Seneca's not a philosopher, because he was really like, I mean, he was actually the richest man in the Roman Empire, and then like the tutor to Nero, and he sort of ran the empire for 5 years.
Yeah.
And like he writes these letters at the end of his life. He's 72, and he writes these letters to Lucilius, who at the time is like 25, and is the governor of Sicily. And it really is like Seneca trying to impart his wisdom to Lucilius.
Yeah.
And he's just this super pragmatic, super successful guy. He's not boasting you, like he's not giving you some, I don't want to give you anything like some dumb, you know, philosophical deliberation on a useless topic. It's just like trying to help you be a better person in the ways that he's learned. And that really resonates with me quite a bit.
Final question is: do you think your job is stressful, and how do you manage that stress?
I deal really well with stress, to be honest. Like, is it stressful? Yeah. Like, if someone doesn't deal well with stress, they're just gonna hate working at Seamless, because on day one we're gonna tell them like, "Oh, you're terrible at this." And now, if you're just super stressed, like, it's uncomfortable. You're not gonna like it. Is it stressful? Yeah. But for me, that's just really fun, like, because it's just the process of growth, basically.
Yeah.
Like, stress is literally, you know, like pressure. Like, so is it stressful? Yeah. Do I find that's a problem? No. Like, I think that's pretty cool, because that's how you grow. So.
Okay. Thank you very much.